Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is Anytime Media. We are your hosts. I'm Ocean Subiano.
I'm Taylor Vera.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, as quickly as the show came to us and started, the show is over. It's a sad day, but it's also kind of a happy day. I don't know. We'll find out as we go through this. But, ladies and gentlemen, Amazon's original show, The Rings of Power, has concluded its first season. It went by super fast.
Feels like it.
Yeah. Especially since I feel like we were waiting for it for so long. And then, done.
Yeah, it could be partially because of our channel, like,
yeah, that too.
And stuff.
And the crazy thing is we have like over 500 minutes of runtime. And I still want more. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about the season finale of The Rings of Power. We're going to share our thoughts on the season as a whole. We're going to break down what happened in the finale, why it's important, why it may not be important, and also maybe talk about what we think is going to happen in the future and going forward. We're also going to give our final score for this show, and I think you guys should stay tuned because I think there might be both some surprises and some confirmations. You know what I mean? So, if you guys haven't checked out the show yet, watch it first. Watch it first, and then come back and we'll talk about it. Hey, as far as spoilers go, we're not going to spend too much time in this spoiler-free section because
I mean we pretty much just
we just want to get right.
There's a lot of stuff.
Okay, essentially, my overall thoughts on this series, spoiler-free, is on one hand, this is not, for me personally, it is not the first 10 out of 10 show on that I am going to rate.
No.
But on the other hand, it is far better than majority of people out there are giving it credit for. And I really enjoyed this season as a whole. Were there some low parts? Sure. But I really enjoyed it. And I'm very much looking forward to the next season. So, overall thoughts, not a 10 out of 10. But it was good. It ended well, in my opinion. And I am ready for the next season.
Yeah. I think for the most parts, I agree. It's definitely not a 10 out of 10.
No.
At all. But it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it a lot. I was actually pretty excited about this episode. I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Right.
To see how you thought about things. I have a lot of questions after this episode.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused, to be honest, about some things.
Sure. Let's break it down.
But, yeah, a lot of stuff happens in this episode. Of course, it's finale. A
lot.
But I do, yeah, I agree. I do like this show a lot. I think it's a lot better than people generally think it is. I don't think it's like amazing, but it's definitely pretty good. It's enjoyable. And yeah, I'm also excited for the future. So yeah. I think I would ultimately, only because I'm curious about the rest of it, is I would probably stay at an 8 for this season.
All right, so final scores for the season, ladies and gentlemen. Final scores, Taylor is giving an 8 out of 10 for the show, which, if you check Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, falls right in line with all of the critic scores. Audience scores, different, but some of y'all need to maybe, like, rewatch The Lord of the Rings or read The Lord of the Rings again or something. I don't know. Y'all need Jesus.
I mean, there's some stuff that is legitimately could be improved upon in this show.
Sure.
But I think there is a lot more to the show than people realize.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to bump my score up a point. Because, and I'm man enough to admit this, I was fooled. I was fooled the whole time. And for that reason, because Amazon and the producers and the creators successfully fooled me the entire time, I will give your show a 9. But it's a soft 9. Very soft.
Are you talking about the certain characters that we're going to be bringing up?
Yes.
Okay. I told you.
Shut up. Very soft 9. Realistically, it's an 8. And even an 8 might be a little bit of a stretch.
There was a little bit that did surprise me, though.
But because I can admit as a man that I was fooled for the entire season, I'll give you guys a little bit of extra love and put you at a very low 9. Ladies and gentlemen, check out the season before we dive into the spoilers. Otherwise, none of what we're going to talk about is going to make any sense. And in my opinion, it's just going to lessen the impact of it. So go check it out. Hey, and this is your official
spoiler alert.
All right. Let's address the elephant in the room. I didn't know it was Halbrand. I didn't know. And it kind of like makes me mad and like makes me a little upset because usually I can pick those things out. Usually I can snuff out when somebody is not who they are or who they're claiming to be. Usually I can. And it kind of irks me that I didn't see it with Halbrand.
What a twist.
So, as far as the stranger goes, ended up being a wizard. Like I don't really hold to the same regard because like for him, it was either Sauron or a wizard, in my opinion. Like it was one or the other.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So like I didn't, because he ended up being a wizard and not Sauron, it wasn't like they fooled me. It was just like, oh, okay, like he's that instead of that. But
they do the old bait and switch in this episode though.
Hardcore bait and switch. Like they literally call the stranger Sauron.
Yeah.
So
multiple times.
I'll admit, ladies and gentlemen,
and he admits himself.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't know.
I'll admit to you all, I got fooled. I didn't know. Shout out to my mom. My mom actually told me way back in like episode 2 or something, or like shortly after Halbrand was introduced. My mom called it way back then. She was like, I think he's bad. That might be Sauron. I don't think the stranger's Sauron. Complete shot in the dark. She's just spitballing. But shout out to my mom for nailing it on the head.
I did say it was between one of the two.
Well, I don't remember you ever specifically talking about Halbrand potentially being Sauron. I remember you saying that Halbrand had the potential to turn into a lot of people, he could potentially be a lot of different things, but you never specifically said he could potentially be Sauron. Because in my head, I never portrayed Sauron's physical form being a human male.
Well, that's the thing, is he's not supposed to be.
Right. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But like that's why it was such a shock for me. And I talked to one of our mutual friends about this, and he's of the mindset that it was kind of a negative thing that he was a human male. But that's why it was just like it was never in the realm of possibilities for me. Huh?
Who?
The one that lives in Arizona. He actually knows a lot more about the lore of Lord of the Rings than you think he does. He's actually pretty well versed on it.
Arizona.
Yeah. Air Force.
Oh, I mean, he's not like he's gonna be back here, like.
Well, soon, yeah. But right now he's there.
Yeah.
So, but I never thought it was a possibility. I actually thought that Halbrand was going to be the Witch King. That's That's what I thought he was going to end up being.
That actually would have been really cool.
I figured
That's what I was hoping for.
I figured he was going to end up being one of the 9 kings of men that received the ring, and then he was going to turn into the Witch King of Agmar.
I was kind of hoping for that.
So that's where I thought his character was headed. And in my opinion, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure that a lot of other people arrived at that conclusion as well. And so I never saw it as a possibility. But what I will say, and this is something that I told that same mutual friend, retroactively thinking back to the rest of the season, it makes sense. Like the things that he says, the things that he does, in my opinion, all line up with him revealing that he's Sauron.
Yeah. I think that's probably why I don't remember a specific moment of me mentioning that, is because every time we talked about an episode where he does something, I tried to avoid saying that because I didn't know if it was actually true. Because I think I did talk a lot about it before the show came out, of when you were asking me about Sauron specifically and what he did during this time. He did everything basically that we talked about. And then there were certain details that specifically happened that were so small in this show that I was unsure whether or not it was that important or not, or if it was just kind of like a reference thing, or whatever. Because it,
like what? Give me an example of one of those details.
When he is in prison in Numenor and Al-Pharazôn starts hearing him in his head, that is something that Sauron did,
right? Because
as Anatar.
I actually knew that, and it pisses me off that I didn't pick up on that, because I know that, and I also know that at some point during the Silmarillion, that Numenor actually captures Sauron and brings them back to Numenor, and that's when he
starts corrupting
Al-Pharazôn. Yeah,
and then he starts doing all this crap with Numenor.
That leads to the demise of Numenor. Yeah. So that pisses me off that I didn't pick that up.
The same thing in this episode when, at the end of the battle, he's like injured for some reason, which is his excuse to be taken with Galadriel to
Elven Kingdom.
To meet Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
Which is when he starts talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, don't worry. I know exactly what we should do. You should do this right here." And then I'm like, "Oh, here we go." Like literally, as soon as this episode started, I'm like, he's Sauron. That's because he's not even just like hinting at it. He's literally doing every single thing. It's just like, I'm Sauron. And then he goes and says, I'm Sauron.
The moment where he starts talking to Celebrimbor about Mithril and all that stuff, that's where my brain started being like, hold on a second.
It's too coincidental.
Well, for one, my initial reaction was, you just healed that fast? Like, you're just good? You're just gonna get up out of bed and roam around?
You don't do that?
You got stabbed in the stomach.
You don't get a giant sword.
You get stabbed in the stomach by an enemy lance right across
immediately
the Middle Earth for 6 days straight.
So like, don't worry, I got this. Jumps on horseback and rides by himself.
6 days
unassisted.
6 days straight riding a horse. Show up to, how do you say it? Eregion. Show up to them, Frodo Baggins on top of a horse, and then there's a scene of him in the bed, like, looks like he's on the brink of death, and all the healers are trying to do their thing, and then he's just chill. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm looking for a Galadriel. It's all good.
Yeah. Hey, but
while I'm here,
you're a Smith, right?
I'm a Smith.
I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah. That's when I started to be like, hold on, red flags. Also, now I remember Sauron corrupted Celebrimbor to make I remember all these little things coming back to me, and I was like, oh my God.
I do have some big issues with this later on.
Well, yeah, we could talk about the timeline issues with it, but I was just like, oh my God, fucking Halbrand is Sauron. And I admittedly, for the next like 20 minutes of the episode, because I was watching it with my family, I was like pissed off at myself. Like I was sitting there and I probably had like a smirk on my face and was just like, I'm an idiot.
I mean, there was a Well, I guess maybe it was. I don't know if it was just through. I mean, for sure this episode, but all those times that those things happen that they explain in this episode, you never like.
I'll admit I didn't.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't pick up on it.
I was like I said, I was always like, oh, that's sketchy. That's sus. That's sus.
Hindsight.
Because there's so many coincidental things. It's like, oh, it's a little. Even the moment when like this is what I thought was stupid when Galadriel was like, and he's like, I told you, I found that off of a dead body.
Man,
he did in fact literally tell you that,
yeah,
and you just chose to ignore it
and never pressed it, yeah. So the reason why I think that happened for me is because, like I said, I never thought it was in the realm of possibility for Sauron's physical form to be a human male.
But I will say,
I know that it is possible.
We're partially correct in the fact that how we felt about Adar, because he was like, I was helping you with your enemy, who was also my enemy.
Yeah. When I called out that he took offense to being called Sauron, and that he isn't actually.
I just meant like, I mean, that was to me it was obvious, but like just the fact that they were like both gunning for the the spot,
the top spot.
There can only be one.
Yeah. So I didn't think it was in the realm of possibility, so I just never paid attention to it. I just thought that Halbrand had this dark past that eventually was going to come to light and be a complication of him being king of the Southlands. And then eventually, like way down the road, was going to be what led him to becoming the Witch King.
See, like I said, I wanted that to happen because I feel like that's a little more complex than just he's Sauron. Yeah.
The difference between me and you is you know all of those finer details, and so when those finer details happen, when all those little clues happen, you were able to pick up on them and realize that not only are they indicative of him being evil or headed towards evil, but that they were specifically headed towards him being Sauron. For me, I picked them up as just being evil, not Sauron.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just in general, like I would have preferred, like we mutually agree that it would have been
a better
cool if he ended up being somebody like the Witch King.
Yeah,
because it's just a character that we've never really gotten backstory for, you know? And for a new character, I mean, I guess they could still do it later, but for somebody like him, it would have been cool. Yeah, because it was somewhat believable. Like it could be believable.
You're right.
Reasonable.
It's not out of that's not out of the realm of possibility. But in my head, I never would have expected Sauron to be a human male. So, in the end, you got me. All right, you got me. I was fooled. Good job. Whatever. But let's talk about the complications that Halbrand being Sauron presents. And let's talk about maybe some inconsistencies or whatever issues that you have with him being Sauron. So what, if any, issues do you have with Halbrand being Sauron?
I wouldn't say it's that big of an issue, but the fact that he is just a human guy or man is a little weird.
That he takes the form of a human male?
Yeah, that's.
He's obviously not human. I mean, he's
but that's the form that he takes.
Yeah, right.
It's a little. I mean, it's one thing to be wrong. It's just.
Yeah, is it wrong? Probably not.
It is. Well, it is wrong. Like he's supposed to be an elf, and he's supposed to be called Anatar. Yeah. But I don't really care about that. It's just why this guy as your form. Like why just a nobody? I mean, so was his elf form, but an elf is already a higher being than a human, certainly.
I think it has to do with the whole Southlands thing. Because the producers and the screenwriters chose for the setting of this story to primarily take place in the Southlands and not even actually really the Southlands. Like if you look on the map, it's more of like it's kind of like the southeast-ish area, not even like the true Southlands. But their focus was in this particular setting, and so the storyline that they chose was for this Return of the King kind of thing, right? To kind of be synonymous or fall in line with the Return of the King from Lord of the Rings, but on a smaller scale and with a lot more fucking complications. And so because they chose that, they couldn't do an elf, because like try to imagine how they would have worked in having Sauron as an elf within this story. You know what I mean?
Oh, like
that
the
would,
way they presented it in
now,
the show?
could they have just chosen a completely different story and a completely different setting? Sure. And they probably could have figured it out that way. But if we're taking what we get at face value and reviewing and reacting to what it is within the story that we got, it does make sense. Because Halbrand, as the prodigal king coming to return and take claim of the Southlands, is just a quote unquote good way of saying Sauron is coming back to try and take over Middle Earth again. You know what I mean? Like it's a, what is it called? Not paradox, but I don't know. I'm gonna remember the word later on. But that, to me, that's the parallel. It's a parallel storyline, and that's why for me it works. Yeah.
I mean, it does work for what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's just they did it in such a strange way, I guess. Like it's because it's so, they wanted to be so original that it does do the same thing,
right.
But it's like you said, it's kind of like a parallel. It's just in a much different way.
Yeah. I think that they're, like, to me, it seems like their not ultimate goal, but a big part of what they wanted was for very few people to realize who Sauron is until the very end of the season.
Right, which
Like,
makes
they
a lot of
wanted
sense, because you want that hype and that drive, which is one thing I actually like about this show that not everybody, but there's a decent amount of people that criticize it for, as they're like, oh, they changed this, and this, but it's like, is it really that exciting if you just know every single detail happening?
Right.
You know, like, I mean, to an extent, sure, but
Well, not only that,
how excited are you supposed to be?
Right? Yeah. How are you?
Because
it's very hard.
never gonna live up to your image in your head of what you're thinking. You know, you're imagining.
It's very hard to maintain somebody's eagerness and excitedness if you're going to tell all 3,000 years worth of the Second Age.
Because then the show would be so
that's what I mean.
long.
Is that, like, at its core, you can't do that. So what do? They figure out a way to condense storylines and maybe accelerate or decelerate certain events and certain things in order to maintain that excitedness that you feel to find out about who is Sauron. When do we get to see the rings forged? When do we get to see Balrogs? Oh, there's a wizard now? Yeah. Okay. Is it Gandalf? Is it not Gandalf? Like, you can't.
It's not Gandalf.
Yeah, I hope it's not too. But you can't do that if you're going to try and tell 3,000 years worth of a story day by day and event by event.
This is something we talked about long before the show had come out, right? This is one of the teasers we talked about. It is, I don't know. People think it's just so easy to do, but I think it's so difficult, especially when you have this huge span of time and you have to like try to condense it and make it interesting
and make it a good story.
Right.
A good story, ladies and gentlemen.
I firmly believe that people are delusional with their personal skills involved with writing. We'll just say that. Or storytelling.
Don't even get me started. There's so many people like, oh, I could do better.
I don't think so.
Really?
I definitely couldn't,
I couldn't.
especially not with this show. There's certain things that I can pick out and be like,
Sure.
maybe like dialogue or something. Like I don't know if I could make an entire story. But dialogue specifically, sure. But that's
after
different.
the fact, though.
Right.
That's after the fact when you have something to compare. These guys, the writers, the screenwriters, the producers, are creating from scratch, essentially. They have the Silmarillion and other stuff, but very little to go off of.
I don't think they have that much. As far as what they can pull from.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a lot.
No, that's what I mean. It's very little, and I think it's less than what people actually know because the estate of the Tolkien estate only licensed Amazon to use particular things.
Right.
They didn't give them free
Because
range.
it'd be too expensive.
Well, yeah, but they didn't give them full range. So, I actually, now that I think about it, that's probably something that a lot of people are overlooking when they're trying to compare this story to whatever they think it's supposed to be from the Silmarillion or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that maybe this story is different because whatever it is that you think was supposed to happen or didn't happen or shouldn't happen, maybe they couldn't use that. Maybe the Tolkien estate was like, no, we don't want to let you use that part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the details, but
I don't know the details, and I don't think the details are public about what specifically they can and cannot use. But people, you guys got to understand, and we can talk about the bad things, and we can bring to light things that are maybe inaccurate and whatnot. But you guys also have to be able to objectively think about things.
I mean, it's just you have to be able to view different perspectives or take things into context as a whole.
Let's pretend Lord of the Rings never existed. Let's pretend Lord of the Rings never existed. Let's pretend that this is not called the Rings of Power, and some other fantasy producer or whatever came out with this show. If this show was not titled The Rings of Power and not tied to the Lord of the Rings, people would be over the moon for this show. I think.
I don't know about over the moon, but I would imagine it'd certainly be higher.
I think that the disparity between critic and audience reviews would be way closer than it is.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be a lot higher.
Way closer. Because the story itself is solid. It's solid. The acting was great. The visuals were spectacular.
Yeah.
The score, everything was great as far as the fundamentals of a TV show. It's just the fact that this is tied to arguably the largest fandom in the world.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there's a lot that comes with Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings and everything in The Hobbit. It's just I just don't like when people, especially when they're like, "Oh, Tolkien is rolling in his grave right now." Like, really? You know who he is?
Yeah.
You know him?
You talked
buds?
to him?
You knew him back on the block?
Yeah,
Huh?
back in the day. Yeah,
You used to hang out with him?
Did you even know?
You wrote this?
Yeah.
You're being attacked? Oh, I'm sorry.
Tell me when the first Lord of the Rings came out, bitch, or The Hobbit. Your grandpa wasn't even alive then. Well, maybe your grandpa, but your dad wasn't.
I mean, just that, and there. I think there's a large. I think we talked about this in the teasers too. There's a crowd of people that I think it's a mix of all kinds of different ideologies for this show, and it's a mix of people that present themselves as true Tolkien fans and lore masters with, I don't know, maybe some weird anti-woke stuff going on, and then just little brain dumb idiots that are just bandwagoning along with them. And they're all going on their one thing when really they're just arguing completely different things.
Yeah.
But because they all mutually agree that they hate this, it just becomes
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah. No, I agree with you. So, people, give it a break. Why don't you try?
I don't really care, to be honest. I don't think the show is going anywhere. So
if you don't like it, don't watch it. and just let us enjoy it. For the people that do enjoy it, let us enjoy it.
They're gonna. Well, I don't. Yeah, honestly, that's what you should do. It's not gonna happen.
Just leave it alone.
It is like an itch. It cannot help it, and they're gonna keep watching, and then the people are gonna keep, talking about it and everything. And that's another thing too. It's like, if it's so bad, why are you still really in it? Doesn't that say something?
And if I can say this,
and there's a difference between legitimately wanting it to be a certain way and just, this is trash, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying?
I can agree with this statement and endorse the statement because I abstained from watching the horrific mess that is Halo after I watched the first episode because
the only reason I watched it is because I got charged for this app and there was nothing else that I wanted to watch in this app.
And you don't want to waste money.
Yes.
But I did not. I abstained.
But I tried to unsubscribe and we were going to stop.
Yeah.
But because I got charged, we did the final episode.
Right.
And that is it. Because guess what? I hated Miss Marvel and I didn't finish it. I didn't want to look or watch She-Hulk and I didn't even touch it.
Yeah. So for those of you that feel that way about Rings of Power, maybe take a little bit of our advice and just leave it alone. Just let us have it. You can have whatever it is that you like and we'll have what we like and we'll just all live happily ever after. Not going to happen, but it's a dream.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the story itself, right? So Halbrand is Sauron, and the juxtaposed character of the stranger, who was clearly they were trying to lead the audience to believe that he was Sauron. It comes out to be one of the Istar, or in other words, a wizard.
Yeah.
Right. First off,
were you surprised when he finally met the people?
Was I surprised about what?
Their reaction, because you had this idea that they were so, at least from what it seemed like to me, that they were so evil that they were trying to hunt it and kill the stranger.
Well, I posed the question that maybe they were trying to take out competition because of the power level that they showed.
Yeah, it is pretty insane.
They're ridiculous.
I do have a problem with that.
Yeah. So because of that, I posed the question of maybe they're trying to take out the competition. However, as we find out that they are loyal followers of...
They are simps.
Yeah. I don't know if are they specifically Sauron's followers or Morgoth and by default Sauron's followers?
I don't know.
Whatever. Either way, they're very loyal and loyal to the point of even though he's not actually Sauron, they're trying to make him be Sauron.
Well, because they thought he was.
They thought. And granted,
so did he.
Yeah, not only he, but I did too. When they were talking about, fire obeys you and this and that, and then he accepts that he's Sauron, and then they call him Sauron and whatnot, I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess that makes up my mind about whether that's Sauron or a wizard. There was a very brief moment of me thinking it was too easy and too soon in the episode for it to happen because it was in the beginning of the episode, but I kind of just accepted it because in my head it was okay, well, he's either a wizard or Sauron. They told me it's Sauron, so okay, whatever. But then as things progress with that storyline, and he's still under this clouded mind kind of thing, where he's not fully able to comprehend who he is and where he comes from and whatnot. The followers, led by this person, which I don't think we ever find out a name, do we?
I don't think so.
I don't remember. But this person is basically as strong as Sauron herself. Come on. She has this staff thingy that she's able to just use as a puppet master kind of thing. She can teleport. She can also shapeshift, which, what?
Yeah.
Come on. little too far for me. This person was way too powerful.
Yeah, I was not a fan of this portion of the episode.
So they're trying to take trying to take the stranger back to Ruin, which I think I know what it is, but I also don't. Or maybe I don't know. I feel like I should know what Ruin is.
It's in the east.
Yeah, I feel like I should know, but I guess
it's just. I mean, it's the name of a certain area.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. They're trying to take him there to be able to grow his powers and become the Sauron that they think he is. And then because he's simple-minded at that moment, he was like, okay, I guess I'm Sauron.
Yeah. He's like, oh, makes sense to me.
He's like, okay, you see my stars. But Harfoots are a thing. And Nori saves the day.
Mr. Frodo, I'm coming with you.
Yeah. So, Nori saves him, reminds him who he is, that he's good, and the dude just stands up and vaporizes everybody, and it's just like, I'm good. It
was kind of funny. This moment in the episode reminded me of the reverse of Samaritan.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not the bad guy. I'm the good guy.
You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong. So he destroys, or I guess disintegrates, and turns them into butterflies or moths.
Moths,
or whatever.
yeah.
So let's talk about the parallels.
I also really hated. I don't think there's a name for her as well, but one of the other followers was Moon Knight.
Cringy.
Well, she was literally Moon Knight. Like,
yeah, the half moon thing.
Just pulling that stuff out and keep throwing it. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know Marvel was in this.
You're not wrong. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, obviously there's a struggle when Sadak gets stabbed by one of the Moon Knight chicks things.
Yeah,
and he dies, which it was actually sadder than I thought it was going to be. Like, once he actually died, and then when we see them at the end of the episode,
it is kind of sad. The only thing I didn't like is the immediate transition when he's like, I just want to see the sun come up one last time. Oh, sun's coming up. It was like, wait a minute. I thought it was like...
Yeah, I thought it was like the middle of the night, yeah.
But okay, I guess we're just flying through that. Yeah. That was a little weird. But.
It was a little weird. So, what I want to talk about for this storyline is, for one, the parallels between this and Lord of the Rings, but also, Taylor, is this Gandalf? Because there's two very specific things that point towards it being Gandalf, and because I've been fooled in the past, I am inclined to believe that he is not Gandalf, because they're trying to make me believe that he's Gandalf. The first one being that when he disintegrates the 3 bad chicks or whatever, they all turn into moths. Yeah. And if you guys remember from the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf has a connection with moths and uses them as messengers, basically. Right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, at the very end of the episode, there's a very specific line that he says that is literally almost word for word something that Gandalf says, and like, to me, they're literally just trying to be like, this is Gandalf, because
like I said, the whole setup is Nori is Frodo, Poppy is Sam, this is Gandalf.
Except
is the relation that
Poppy stays behind. She doesn't go off on the adventure with them. And
she ends up turning more into like a Bilbo.
Yeah,
I'm going on an adventure.
So, that's why, like, I'm just, is it Gandalf? Because that line, man, you can't play that off as anything but trying to hint that he's Gandalf. You know what I mean?
Which line are you talking about specifically? Do you remember?
Yeah. What is it? It's like, frick. Now I'm gonna butcher it, but
I don't remember.
He says is something along the lines of, "If you don't know your way, Brandyfoot, always follow your nose. Because she's like, oh, I don't even know where to go. And he's like, feels a little bit warm, or smells a little bit warmer this way. Let's go that way. And then he turns to her, and he has a very like warm look on his face. And
Yeah,
he's like,
it's definitely a Gandalf like moment.
yeah. I mean, it is. Like, there's no way that you can tell me that's supposed to be anything other than a direct reference to when Gandalf tells.
Right. But what have we learned from this show?
Right. So that's my point, and that's why I'm asking.
Well, I can't tell you who this guy is,
right.
but I
hey,
am going to say he is not Gandalf.
Okay. I don't think he's Gandalf either. But you also left out the fact that Halbrand could have possibly been Sauron. So now I'm asking you.
Okay, well, there's actually a lot more details about this guy that leads him to kind of be like Gandalf than just those.
Okay.
The fact that he is so prominent with fire is a Gandalf thing.
True.
Gandalf has always been known to use flame. That's just why when he's fighting the Balrog, he's like, the flame of the
flame of the Undur, or
well, he says the move is the flame of Undune, but he says something specifically to I can't even remember the name. It starts with an A. There's actually some other details that we can talk about later off camera. That and the whole star system thing. I have not double checked this, but people have mentioned that the stars look like the symbols that Gandalf leaves on the door to the Hobbit, or on Bag End, on the Bag End's door, to attract the dwarves and to return later.
Oh.
You know, his symbol?
Yeah.
But I did not double check that, but that is another thing that people I have heard about mentioning.
I haven't seen that.
One interesting thing is when he uses the staff in this episode.
Yep.
Because in The Lord of the Rings, it's definitely shown a lot differently. Is the wizards are so powerful even without their staves, but in the movies, in The Lord of the Rings, it almost was the opposite.
Yeah,
they gave the idea that the staff was their power. Because if you remember, Saruman takes Gandalf's staff, uses both of them because Gandalf then has no powers, basically. On top of that, when Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White, a.k.a. Saruman,
right,
he destroys Saruman's staff and then has power over him.
Right. Well, they also, in the Hall of Rohan, they also specifically say, like, I told you to take his staff.
Yeah, Greenback Tongue was like, I specifically said to take his staff.
Right.
Again,
I think that...
Which is not actually true. But it was cool to see it in this because we've already been seeing his power, so we know he's powerful. But he does use it as sort of a channeling device to control it.
I think that's more of what a staff is. I don't think the staff itself grants them powers.
I'm saying that is what it is.
Okay.
That's not what it was in The Lord of the Rings, but it's cool to be represented like that here. Because it makes, to me, it's more reasonable. Yeah. Because why is this one little item going to be so magical, but you're not?
Yeah.
When you're...
Well, the wizards are literally supposed to be, magical.
Yeah. You're the star. Like, you know what I mean? Or the Maya or whatever. Yeah. So that was very cool. But for sure, they gave off a ton of Gandalf vibes in this.
Yes.
But because that's what they are showing me, you're wrong. Like, not saying you're wrong, but you're trying to bait me.
Or is it the old double cross, like, is it the old...
Now that you're expecting
expecting
now I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Maybe it's that. I don't know.
I don't think it's that.
You don't think so?
No.
I think it's possible.
I mean, it's a possibility, but I don't think it is.
My gut tells me no. My gut tells me he is of the same order that Gandalf belongs to or whatever, but he's not Gandalf.
They have to fool us.
Right.
So, I don't know.
And
maybe
also,
it's something way off.
And also, they need more connection. Well, they don't need, but I'm sure they think that they need more connections to the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
For the same reason that Legolas was in The Hobbit.
Oh, you're talking about for, like, Nori's sake?
No. Just like I could imagine that the producers and whatnot think that they need more direct connections between this and the Lord of the Rings in order to pull people in, more people into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if this is Gandalf, then maybe they might be able to pull more people into it. Just like the fact that Legolas was in The Hobbit.
Yeah, for some weird reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. That's cool. Or interesting thought, at least.
I hope not, because I would like more. I would like to know more wizards. I would like to know more about the Istars.
Well, I thought, I don't know, because, okay, so there's a certain, I forget which episode, so sorry, but there's when they show, so we see him land, right? And then we see the other people, the freaky people.
Yeah.
That isn't confirmed to my knowledge, to be that same spot. So the way they show it could be a super quick bait and switch where we think, oh, this is where he landed, but it could be a completely separate landing.
Maybe it's where Halbrand landed?
No. What I'm saying is maybe this is the other wizard. Because this could be he could be a blue wizard, but there's two blue wizards. We never, ever hear or see them in anything before unless you read, all of the text and stuff for Lord of the Rings and stuff. There's 5 total wizards.
Right.
There's Saruman the White, Gandalf the Grey, Radagast the Brown, and 2 blue wizards.
Oh.
And I don't remember. I would have to go back and scrub through the footage.
Yeah.
But there could have been 2 completely separate impact points.
You're talking about the first time that we see those people. Because they're like up on the ridge and they're looking down on the impact site.
Yes.
And then the super powerful one goes down into the impact site and everybody else stays up top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I can't remember when we were watching it. It didn't strike me as being the exact same spot.
The funny thing is, now that you say that, I feel like it. Like I feel like I can mentally remember his landing spot, and I can mentally remember that scene, and it, like, to me, it does.
Because I feel like there was more elevation in the spooky people.
Yeah,
they were standing
more
on the cliff,
elevation and less foliage.
Right. Then when we saw Nori and Poppy.
Huh. We should. This is something that we should actually find out.
So that may give us a clue to if he's a blue wizard or not.
Okay, and maybe the whole nose thing is just something that they all say, or all.
I think it's just
or it's a
subtle reference, because it's funny when he says that. I didn't think Gandalf. I was just like, oh, thanks, Toucan Sam. Follow your nose. But it does, when you say that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He does.
It's like almost word for word. There's like 2 words that are different between the 2 phrases. But it's funny.
I mean, like I said, it was intentionally meant to be a Gandalf-y moment.
Right. All right.
But just like how we felt about Adar.
Yeah, I knew Adar wasn't Sauron.
Well,
I knew.
Like I said, they literally told us he was, so he's not.
Yeah.
Especially it was so early on, too.
Yeah. So, okay. I think that's pretty much all we got for that particular storyline.
Yeah. Last part.
Well, one thing I do want to touch on before we dive into the whole Sauron and the rings and all that stuff. We got nothing of the other 2 storylines in this episode. We got nothing of Durin and the elves, right? Which I think that those 2 storylines are headed in completely set. Like, I think they're diverging. I don't think they're the same storyline anymore. I think, and this is part of the same conversation that I had with our mutual friend that lives in Arizona currently. One of the comments that he mentioned was, okay, they're supposed to make like 5 seasons, right? What else are they gonna make these seasons about? And so I was just spitballing about, like, okay, maybe they could do this, maybe they could do that, and this. And I think what we're headed for is a dwarven specific storyline that hopefully deals with the Balrog and shows us some cool battle between those. You know, I think that would be dope. And then the Elven storyline.
So you think they're going to be themed seasons, basically?
I don't know if they're going to be themed seasons necessarily. I just think that our storylines are going to diverge a little bit more. Like right now, they're all kind of interconnected somehow, right? Everything is kind of like, at least if they're not directly connected, they're indirectly connected by being connected to another storyline, right? So like Arondir is connected to Durin because he knows Galadriel, and Galadriel knows Elrond, Elrond knows Durin, right? But I think what's going to happen, well, what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a little bit more divergence of the storylines. We're going to get a Dwarven storyline. I think we're going to learn more about why all of the Elven kingdoms kind of like split up, and like why there's different realms and stuff, which I don't know the answer to, so that'd be cool to learn.
Yeah.
And then obviously we'll learn more about how men are dumb, because
always
moral men are idiots.
You can never forget.
And then obviously we're gonna have the Numenor storyline, right? Yeah. And then another storyline that I think is gonna happen is the clash between Adar and Sauron. It's gonna be brief because
brings the power and war.
Yeah. But I think like that's kind of what I envision would be ideal. Whether or not that's what they came up with is a different thing. But
I have no idea what they're
what
they're going to be doing. There's still a decent amount of stuff that we have to cover,
right?
Which is part of why I'm kind of confused about some of the ending.
I know what you're talking about, and so we didn't touch on the Durin and the Elf storyline, and we didn't touch on the men and like the Arondir and Bronwyn and Theo storyline either.
Thankfully,
yeah, I'm okay with it. And then the last storyline, or last piece that I want to bring up before we talk about the finale. No confirmation on whether or not Isildur is alive. Obviously he's alive. There's no way that he's not. But they didn't show it.
No way.
If they're willing to just wreck all of canon, sure. But they didn't show it, and I am of the opinion that it's okay. However, I have seen a lot of other people, and specifically our mutual friend, that feel the opposite. And so I'm curious to know what your opinion is on the fact that we didn't learn whether or not Isildur is alive.
He didn't like it?
Yeah. He wanted them to just let us know that he's still alive.
Why?
I don't know. I think he just... I don't know. I can't really remember exactly why he said that, but I think he just kind of wanted that storyline to be tied up or whatever. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know. To me, it's not really...
I know why. Because he was talking about how the three original cities that were started by Isildur, his brother, and his father, right? Like Osgiliath, I can't remember the names of the other two. Whatever. And he just felt like he wanted to know that he's still alive, so that whatever. That's how the topic of Isildur came up, because he was talking about those other things.
Sure, I guess.
I don't have a problem with it, because for me it's like, all right, save it for next season. I don't care, because I know he's alive.
It's such a minor
omittance of information, because the information is inferred. Like, there's no way. I will immediately reverse all thoughts on this show if he's dead.
Yeah, there's no way that he's dead. On top of that, too, they don't ever show him
dead.
Dying.
Right. So
So you can't just make the assumption that he's dead.
I don't think he is making an assumption. I think he just wanted them to specifically say whether or not he's dead.
Which is such a. I mean, I guess that's fine if that's his opinion, but that's so minor that
That's just his opinion. I just wanted to know your opinion.
Well, the reason, because his reasoning makes no sense to me. If you want to know he's them admitting that he's alive just for the case of things that happened in the future, because he's actually not even supposed to be alive at this time. So that doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
But you're like it's almost like you're pre-hating the decision.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what's actually happening for the possibility of the future changing. When really it's just a minor thing. Like if it like say next season comes out and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's dead." And everything like whatever, the 3 cities weren't made by him and his brother and his dad or whatever. Sure. Then you can tell me all you want how it's garbage or whatever, you don't like it. That's fine. But to just project that much ahead is a little much for me.
I mean, I don't know. My question is, do you care whether or not they talked about it?
I don't care a single bit.
Cool. Good to know. All right. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about how this season ended. Like the final piece of it, what you didn't like, what you did like. I'll start off by saying that I actually did not really care for the way that didn't particularly care for the way that Halbrand revealed that he's Sauron. To me, it felt just a little plain. I liked what once him and Galadriel started talking about it and how they did this whole like mindscape kind of thing.
Like a force projection kind of
like
thing.
I liked that. That was cool. And
with jumping through the visions and stuff.
And I liked how Halbrand was trying
I had issues with that though, from Galadriel's perspective. Like it was a cool idea, but how she acted throughout that was so stupid.
Yeah. Well, to me, it was just expected of her as her character. I was just like, yeah, that sounds about right for her. So I didn't like how it started because to me it was just so I knew that he was Sauron leading into that conversation, but I wanted a little bit more grandeur of a revelation that he's Sauron. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then lead into the whole Mindscape thing. I'll start off with that. Didn't like that. But I did like the Mindscape. I thought the whole traveling through their memories, him even, referencing things that he said, things that he did to prove to her that he never lied to her, really.
I mean, he didn't.
Right.
He just omitted information.
Yeah, he told her, first off, he told her that he found this crest on a dead man, and he told her that he was returning to reclaim the throne of the Southlands, which is still technically true.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was a rightful claim is a different story, but that's still the truth, or wasn't false, I should say.
And I was not incorrect.
It did not mean what I thought it meant. So I liked all of that. I thought it was good, and even the connection to the ocean and connection to her almost drowning and stuff like that. I liked all of that. I thought it was good.
Yeah, it was cool. I liked it a lot. I also it's not really a big deal, but I kind of like that he just transformed into like Sith like clothing real quick.
That
just
was
like,
sick,
hey,
dude.
If I'm gonna be Sauron, I'm gonna look the part.
All right, let me bring up the biggest problem that I have with this whole Sauron thing. And maybe it's just from a lack of knowledge about the lore and about Sauron himself, and maybe you can just immediately put it to bed. But I, to my very limited knowledge, never, ever, ever heard of Sauron ever wanting to be a healer of Middle-earth.
it's almost like a Disney move.
Yeah. So that's why I don't like it, because to me, Sauron was always just pure evil, and he just wanted to rule. And he wanted, when Morgoth died and when Morgoth was defeated, it was just a like thing of, oh, now it's my turn. Like since he's gone, now it's my turn to try and rule Middle Earth, right? So the fact that they're trying, somebody brought up to me, they were like, well, maybe he was just saying it to try and get Galadriel to, take his side. But not only did he say it, but Adar said it as well when Galadriel was interrogating him while he was tied up in the barn.
Right.
It was the reason why Adar turned against Sauron.
Yeah. This actually wasn't what bothers me about it, but this is something that I definitely picked up on, of course. I don't like it, but it is interesting to me because of the reaction that comes from this portrayed in this show, and things I pick up from other movies and stuff that I've seen recently, which maybe is not a good thing for me to think about, but it's just, or whatever. It's the fact that people loved Adar. He's cool.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between, us saying like Darth Vader's awesome and saying that he's a good person.
Right. Yeah.
But people truly this could be a mix of just memeing whatever or some truth, which I believe there is the fact that people had compassion for the Adar and the orcs, and they thought they were the good people versus Galadriel specifically whenever they would talk about it. And it's interesting to me because it's something that I've been picking up, like I said, from things recently that I've been watching that is repeating. And it's the fact that people, I feel like, are inherently more twisted than they appear to be in general, like with the public and the mindset of, if you can, I
see what you're saying. If you are able to empathize with somebody that is supposed to be evil, then that means you yourself have some sort of inkling of evil.
Which is something, it's interesting because they make fun of it when it is presented in the show, but are expressing it within themselves in real life. Because Galadriel does these overly, which I do think it's a little weird at times, angry, like, I want to commit genocide is what everybody always talks about. Like, are you really going to tell me that killing the orcs is a bad thing?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, it's genocide. Genocide's bad. Yes, it is. But
is
are you really going to die on this hill telling me that killing the orcs is a bad thing?
It's like, are you really going to tell me that killing all the cockroaches in your house is a bad thing?
Right. Like, are they really doing anything in particular that's like ultimately destroying your life? No. They're just a nuisance.
Yeah.
And you might think they're disgusting. But the orcs actually killed. Like, are we really just going to forget the thousands of years that just passed that they were like trying to take over the earth and kill everything? You're just going to forget about all that and tell me that you empathize with it?
No.
It's a little weird, right?
I don't.
It's interesting.
I don't empathize with the orcs. I empathize with Adar in a leader sense. Being like, because I've been in a leadership position, because I know I have somewhat of an idea of what it means or what it takes to lead people and lead people into danger. I empathize with him on that level. But outside of that, I don't empathize with him. I like him. I think he's cool.
Yeah.
I think he's
a very cool character.
But I don't empathize with him. I don't empathize with Sauron.
But yeah, that's the thing is I would never defend the orcs or Adar.
Yeah.
But I do understand his viewpoint.
Sure. Yeah, it's the same concept that I think the first time that we see it really prevalent is actually Thanos from the MCU. Right? Like
I have a completely different perspective on Thanos than majority of the audience that watched that movie. In the sense that Yeah, he's evil. But
Is he wrong?
there's some very true things behind his thought, like, or not true things, but
Valid.
there's some valid reasoning behind his thought process
Right.
to doing things.
Yeah.
But am I gonna defend him? Fuck no.
No, I'm not gonna die on that hill.
Hell no. He definitely should have died.
So, what I don't like is this idea of trying to make Sauron potentially good. And
Yeah,
let
I
people
do agree
empathize
with
them.
that.
Excuse me. In order for this story to have a profound effect and have a gravitating and compelling effect on people, the duality of good and evil has to be a definite line.
Right.
There has to be a line where good and evil separate. And if there's not, if you start blending that line too much, then it detracts from all of the supporting pieces of the story, and it turns it into this whole, like, just trying to figure out what is good and bad thing instead of the story that they're trying to tell.
Yeah.
So I don't like that they're trying to that at least they were originally trying to portray him as wanting to be a healer, and then now he's going to take over Middle-earth.
Right. If they do continue to go down that path, I am going to hate that.
That is a very fair point.
But
it does seem like they're not going to. It does seem like it's
I think it was used mostly as a
like last-ditch effort to get Galadriel.
almost trying to be persuasive in a sense.
That's fair.
Now, I do think in Adar's sense, it makes sense to me to just stick with that because he just firmly believes in that mindset.
It's a little bit. It's just different.
Yeah. But for Sauron, I agree, it would make less sense for it to be that way.
Okay. That's good for me to know and helps me process a lot of this episode and this season. What did you think of the actual forging of the rings?
I did not like it. The only reasoning, I don't care. They look cool.
Yeah.
That's fine or whatever.
Taking a look at the rings, they're elegant, they're beautiful.
Yeah, they look nice.
Nice, great.
They're fancy. That's cool.
Yeah.
I did not like that it was these 3 rings. It is cool that we see them, but I feel like it's way too early for this. Because these were supposed to be made in secret, way after all the other rings were already made.
Right.
We haven't even touched them.
Right.
And at this point, the revealing of himself kind of means that, like, we kind of just skipped over that.
Right.
So, unless we're just going back in time, which would be weird.
Yeah. They're kind of like, to me, it's kind of like a reverse order of operations now.
Right. Which that would be the only way I could see that it kind of like to catch up later.
It'll pan
to make
out.
sense.
Right.
But if they just left it at this, it's a little confusing to me.
I don't think they're going to. I think it is going to end up being a reverse order of the events that were supposed to happen. Right? Because as I understand it, the original 9 and the 7 were made, and then these 3 were made once they saw all of the men and dwarves like fucking civil war and shit.
I mean, basically, once Sauron reveals himself, that's when they're like,
reveals
oh,
that
shit.
he has this.
They find out that the rings were,
a trap, essentially.
It's a trap. Yeah,
it's a trap. So I think it's just going to be a reverse order of operations.
That's why I'm hesitant.
Yeah. So we'll find out. One of the bigger problem, or not bigger, but a problem that I have with the forging of the rings. So, Celebrimbor is supposed to be this like insanely skillful smith.
You're talking about Halbrand's like.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about it, but it's more about not the fact that Halbrand was like, oh, I have the answer for you. You couldn't figure out the answer. Okay. The problem I have is the answer is ridiculously simple.
Okay,
it's stupid.
Wait. It's okay, I totally understand because I immediately thought the same thing. However, I thought about it a little bit while I was watching it, and I don't know if it's going to make sense. It might be stupid still, but it's the only way I could justify them doing it the way they did. For Celebrimbor especially, because like I said, I haven't been a fan of him since.
Yeah, I don't like him at all.
Just the actor and
He's an
everything.
idiot to
Yeah,
me.
he's just kind of weird. I know bias because video games, but
Sure.
whatever. And it's the fact that if you think about it from a very over arrogance, like, elf, because you're this high being, especially Celebrimbor, where you're this super prestigious blacksmith or whatever. I know he's been alive for thousands of years, and people always use that as a complaint about some kind of argument. But if you maybe, I thought, or at least to me, I thought if you could see yourself as being this super over the top, I'm it guy, something as little as this is going to be a little bit, it kind of leans into a little bit of a controversial topic, is mixing two inferior level things together to a pure element is so out of your mind because you have this set mindset on why would I ever taint this level of
Right.
quality or whatever with this. That simple idea of just mix your metals to get a compound or whatever, that idea to me would make sense that you wouldn't think about that. Almost in the sense of race. Why, I don't know if we really want to
Preface
get
this
into
with
this.
that you're not actually racist. You're just trying to prove a
Yes,
point.
I'm just trying to make a point. Okay, let's say you're white. Why would you ever mix a white person with a black person when that's nothing you would ever think of to get something that is still ultimately what you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see where you're, like, to me, what you're trying to say is that Celebrimbor is
Because
supposed to have all of this experience, all of this knowledge, and something that is as simple and as mundane as just mixing it with some really
Right, because the way
simple,
in the
soft
show when
metals.
Halbrand explains it, and he's like, "Oh, I'm poor,
Yeah.
and we grew up with very
Trying to
few.
stretch.
Yeah, we're
Right.
trying to stretch stuff out, so
Right.
we learned to mix lesser metals to make
Right.
these still use these high quality metals."
What you're saying makes sense to me, and I could give Celebrimbor the doubt. For me, in the moment, the forging of the rings, I don't like coincidence based final like event kinds of things. And what I mean by that is the metal that they needed in order to successfully fuse this stuff comes from the dagger that Galadriel has been carrying around the entire season, because apparently they needed a pure version of gold and silver, which could only come from Valinor, and just so happens that Galadriel's standing there with her dagger, and she's like, "Oh, this?" And they're like, "Yes, we'll use that." So like, for me, I hate that kind of storytelling device. I hate coincidence-based things like that. It's stupid to me. That's not foreshadowing and callbacks to the foreshadowing. To me, that's coincidence-based. And I don't like it.
Well,
because it doesn't make sense to me. You're an Aragian, or I still can't, but
Aragian?
Yeah. You're telling me the only thing that's made out of gold and silver from Valinor is her dagger? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like that doesn't jive. I get it's supposed to be an emotional moment for a Galadriel to give up her brother's dagger, but that I would have gotten more satisfaction from watching her plunge that dagger through somebody of evil importance than I get.
That was what I said during the her vision, whatever. When the first one when she's with Finrod, I was like, why didn't you immediately just start stabbing him in the neck? Because it's Sauron.
Yeah, it's not him.
Like, come on.
So I would have gotten way more satisfaction out of watching her use the dagger for what its purpose is supposed to be than melting it down and turning it into these rings that could have been made out of any other Valinor metal or gold and silver object, that there's no way, there's none of the other, there's nothing else in Eregion.
To be fair, I cannot, because I don't know. I'm sure some asshole can tell me in the comments whether or not that's true or not. The lack of knowledge leads me to not care, like to make that argument.
Sure.
Because, like Mithril is also found in Numenor. It's not just in Moria or whatever.
Right.
In fact, by this point in time, they were supposed to have already been known about it.
Right.
And that whole entire storyline is totally new.
Yeah.
But it's fine to me. It's a little... Well, we haven't seen the rest of it yet. So I don't know.
I think it's going to play a bigger deal down the road.
I'm sure it'll come in important later.
Why they added it.
It is coincidental, but honestly, the entire situation was coincidental.
Right.
So to pick out just that Galadriel moment to me,
all of it is coincidental.
Yeah,
I don't like any of it.
So I don't know. Like it is coincidental, and it's fine. I liked it because something that a lot of people complain about is Galadriel and her being this soldier, which is not even the first time I've seen it. It's personally because it's in the games too, which I know the games is not really supposed to be like canon, but whatever. It's still she looked a lot cooler in the games. But to me, it was a visual release of not just her brother, but her as a soldier, because she always has had that dagger throughout the entire time. Right. And every single time, like even when she, every time she fights, whatever, she has the sword too, but she, for some reason, ends up with a dagger. Or like even, I think Theo kind of messed with it for a little bit.
Well, he asked about it.
Yeah.
He asked about it. The dagger was taken in Numenor. There's a lot of... The dagger is relevant in a lot of different places throughout the season.
So to me, the representation for that to be over is fine.
So I understand what you're saying, and I don't want to say I agree, but it is one way of telling the story. But for me, I would have rather gotten that release, and this is what I was talking about, the satisfaction, that release from her ending something. It obviously can't be her plunging it through Sauron's head, because that's not.
Yeah. So,
but I would have rather her seen it used for what it's supposed to be, and gotten the release from her using it than giving it up. I get that it shows more, or it adds more depth to her character and makes her stronger, essentially, because she's able to let go of it.
But
it shows that she's able to let go, right? Yeah. Where she's been holding on to that hate and to that vengeance for centuries, right? So I get that, but it's a dagger. Use the dagger. So like, if it was like a bracelet or a necklace,
right? But like I said,
that would have made a little more sense.
Commonly harped on of being hated for.
Sure.
This was a good representation of it being taken away.
Fair enough. What they did is okay. I just personally do not care for it.
Like, because the same thing, kind of happened with the sword, right? It was a super fancy magical sword, and it's just a fucking key.
Yeah.
That was stupid.
True. Yeah, I was completely wrong about what that was.
Yeah, that was literally just nothing. Yeah. It was trash.
It didn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
Probably could have picked that lock.
Whereas this was insignificant in a sense, but it just became just a way of letting go, release.
So with that in mind, yes. Does it work? Yes. Do I like it?
Again, the technicalities with this, there and nothing else from Valinor, I have no idea. I can't confirm that there is literally nothing else. I have no idea.
It's Celebrimbor's workshop. There's no way.
Yeah, but they're not in Valinor, because if he was, he wouldn't be there making stuff.
No,
once they make the journey there, they stay there.
There's no way.
That's why Galadriel's not there.
Yeah.
Because that would have ruined this entire thing.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we could probably harp on this stuff all
Like
night.
I said, I don't know. But yeah.
But in the end,
My biggest issue is why now?
why release now?
No,
Right?
why these rings now?
Oh, why these specific rings now? Like I said, I think it's just going in reverse order of operations,
I hope
which
so.
brings me to my final question for you, Taylor. The final topic that we'll discuss real briefly because this episode is definitely running on. But does Sauron have the Ring of Power yet? Or has it not been made?
Well,
There's two things. Okay, so there's two sides of the argument. One, the Ring of Power was supposedly have been made in the fires of Mount Doom, right? Which is
Right.
why it had to have been returned to Mount Doom in order to be destroyed. That's one side of the argument, which in my opinion is very compelling and would ruin a lot of canon if they went against that. But the other side of the argument is for that specific reason of if they are going in the reverse order of operations, they should not, like, these rings should not have been made before the Ring of Power. And we don't know what happens to Halbrand / Sauron after the whole
yeah.
Mindscape
Then he
thing.
just kind of teleports.
Yeah, he leaves, right? And then we see him obviously in Mordor, but it's a brief Sith Lord
Yeah.
appearance. So, does he have the Ring of Power or not? Or the other thought I had is he stole a piece of Mithril to make the Ring of Power at Mount Doom.
I don't want that. I don't want that happening.
What, stole a
The
piece of Mithril?
mithril? Yeah, just to make the ring. Yeah, I hope that's not the case. That would be kind of stupid.
I mean, it kind of like somewhat makes sense because he came down from the workshop to talk to Galadriel, and in his head he was telling her, "Hey, we're almost done. Come watch us finally forge these metals." And in his head, he was going to be able to make the Ring of Power at that time and get away with it all, essentially, right? But once Galadriel revealed that she knew who he was, then at that point, he had to scramble, get out of there, and maybe on his way out, he swung by the workshop, picked up a sliver of mithril on his way through, and then headed to Mordor to go make the ring. Or did before he went to go get Galadriel, did they make the Ring of Power?
Well, I can't really give you
No, I want an
definitive
answer.
You want to guess is what you want.
I want you to tell me what you think. What is your answer to that question?
So the question is, does he have the ring or not?
Does he have the ring or not?
No.
He does not have the ring. Okay. What is your thought process of how he's going to be able to get the Ring of Power? Or be able to make the Ring of Power in the fires of Mount Doom?
I mean, I don't know. He's going to do his witchcraft and Mount Doom to make
Well,
the
he
ring.
needs the mithril, right?
No?
No? All right, cool. Okay. I don't know.
Okay. That's where I was getting confused. I was like, wait, what?
No, well, yeah, okay, so I guess part B of the question is, does he need the mithril to make
No.
the Ring of Power?
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So the only reason Sauron needed Celebrimbor was he could not himself make these rings for the 9 and the 7.
Yeah.
He needed Celebrimbor to make those. He then made his ring to control all of them. And then Celebrimbor made these
To
in
combat.
secret. Well, no, he didn't make them to combat Sauron. He just made them because he's like, oh, we're elves. We should have our own rings. And so he made these 3, and they have very specific abilities, whatever, for certain people.
I do know that. Yeah.
And then he finds out, and he's like, oh, crap. Sauron's back. He made all these rings, or he taught me to make these rings so that he can control all of them with the one. And then the elves come together and they're like, oh, I guess we can't use these because
He can
he
control.
could then control the elves, which would be very bad. obviously. And so they never use them.
Cool. So he does not have the ring of power.
I can't say
Yet.
that he doesn't have the ring of power.
No. He does not have the ring
I'm
of
guessing
power.
he does not.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Like I
you heard
said-
it here first on Any Kind Media. Sauron does not have the ring of power yet.
Like I said, this is confusing because these shouldn't have been made yet.
Right. Yeah.
Because we didn't even see the other rings.
Right.
But
That's
like
fair.
I said, there's so many things that are mixed that I have. It's
You
confusing.
have to we have to find out the full picture before we can start jabbing at the pieces.
Right. I mean, if you
If
can
there's something
certainly say
egregious-
like, oh, this is
Out of place.
this is out of order, this is wrong, whatever, blah blah blah. That can definitely be said.
Sure.
But
Let's
to get the big picture kind of thing, yeah.
let's
I
wait
don't
till we
know.
get the big picture before we start writing off the whole show as a whole.
But like I said, it's just confusing because I don't know how they have to go back
Yeah.
in time, unless they're just changing it. But like I said, the Mithril thing was changed in two,
Right.
so I don't know.
All right. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have to wait at least a year and a half to find out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Production did start. They did start filming season 2 of Lord of the Rings, but as of right now, from what I've seen, the current release time is projected for sometime in 2024.
That's right. By then we'll have Avatar 3.
And 4, right? Isn't 4 supposed to come out in 2024?
Does it both come out that year? I thought it was like a
think
year
so.
apart.
Oh no, you might be.
Because
Right.
it was like one, and then like what? I don't know, like
Yeah, you're right.
15
Because
years.
2 is
then
next
2,
year. Or
and then
2
it's
is,
like, and then it's like
yeah.
a year and year and
yeah,
year.
no,
and year.
you're right. My bad. All right. Well, if you made it this far into the episode, you're a real one. We appreciate you guys being here, listening to us rant about this episode. But like we said in the past, Lord of the Rings is something that is very near and dear to us. And so the fact that this is happening is a big deal for us. And whenever we get something like this, these episodes are just going to be long. It's just no two ways around it. So thank you guys for being here. If you made it this far, let us know. We really want to hear from you guys. Even if you have, I don't want to say negative, but even if you have differing opinions or differing takes on the things that we talked about, let us know. We want to hear from you down in the comments below. Leave us a like.
Like we said, we don't know like a ton about everything, but
Yeah, we're not experts.
you know.
We just pretend to be experts.
yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah. But let us know, ladies and gentlemen. We love all of the support and the interaction that we got on the last Rings of Power video. So hopefully this one can do better than that one. And we look forward to talking to you guys. So please like, subscribe, comment, share with a friend. Check us out on social media, Any Kind Media Cast on Instagram and Twitter. And we will catch you guys in the next episode.
Bye, guys.